Back here on Open Mic on 740 The Game. We'll get back to some of your calls and texts coming up later on in the hour. Joining us right now, a man who is a part of Showtime's Inside NASCAR program, seen every Wednesday night at 9 o'clock. He is Brad Daugherty. Brad, thanks for the time. How's everything going?
Hey, everything's going fine. How are you guys today?
We're doing good, Brad. We're going to put you on the spot right away, okay?
Bring it.
Okay, what's bigger for NASCAR? Trevor Bayne coming from nowhere to win the Daytona 500, or Jeff Gordon breaking that long non-winning streak and taking the checkered flag last week?
How come we can't have both?
You can't have both.
I think they're both big for NASCAR. I mean, obviously, you know, coming out of the gate with Trevor Bayne, I mean, that's a remarkable story. Just it's from out of nowhere. I mean, it's like you think back to Derek Cope winning the Daytona 500, but it's totally different circumstances to this young man, a young man who's very, very talented, a young man that as soon as he got a nationwide car 2 years ago, I mean, I just noticed it. He has this ability to go fast. And I know it sounds crazy, but he has speed, and that's just something that some people, it's an innate ability that some people are more comfortable with than others. And for him to win the Daytona 500 is unbelievable. So I think that got us great national attention for our sport, even, you know, possibly even somewhat of a worldwide view of something remarkable. And then Jeff Gordon breaking a 66-win, not a winless streak, and showing the exuberance that he showed after that race tells me he's back. And if he can sustain that exuberance and drive, he could be looking at his fifth championship. So I think they're both great storylines and give us the attention to get a great season started for NASCAR, and hopefully the racing will be just as good as it was at the end of last year, and people will be excited to watch again.
Brad, one of the great storylines I thought, as well, you know, with Trevor Bayne winning the 500, was the Wood brothers also winning. Hey, for us non-gearheads, I remember the Wood brothers back in the 70s when they were the thing in NASCAR. What happened to them? How did they fall on hard times? Was it because of the computerized age in NASCAR? What happened?
Yeah, well, you know, that's a part of it. But what happened with those guys? You know, they used to be based up in Stewart, Virginia, and they were such a big deal because back when everyone was racing, the Wood brothers had the strength to stay out of that Charlotte fray, as we say, because everyone's in Charlotte, and they were up there. They had great support from Ford, and they were doing their own thing, and they had obviously David Pearson and all the great drivers that were a part of their program for over the last 50 years. And when David Pearson went away and some of those drivers went away, they started having a more difficult time staying there in Stewart, Virginia, and racing. So Ford wanted them to move their racing product down towards Charlotte, and when they came to Charlotte, things just kind of started going sideways on them. Jack Roush became a bigger player in the sport. Robert Yates at the time became a bigger player in the sport. And, the Wood brothers were relying a lot on factory support for their motors and horsepower and those types of things. And Robert Yates started building these just incredible motors, and he started keeping everything in-house. And when he started keeping everything in-house for Robert Yates Racing, it started hurting all the other Ford programs.
Gotcha.
Jack Roush came along and kind of stole some of the fire from the Wood brothers because of his connections and the size of his race team and the size of his sponsorship partners. So Ford kind of partnered up and went with Jack, and the Wood brothers were kind of the odd man out. And it's kind of sad because, like I say, they've been around racing for 50, almost 60 years. So that's kind of the short story of it. And then Ford and went through some of its problems financially, starting about 10 years ago. And when that happened, they could only commit resources to really one program. And Robert Yates retired, went away, and Jack Roush stepped up and, at the time had 5 teams. And so they thought it was easier to support Jack, who also was in the pieces and parts business with Ford. And that really just put a damper on. So that's kind of the short story on what happened to the Wood brothers. And they lost sponsorships, the Wood brothers did, because, once again, the Ford contingency was being soaked up by Jack, who has a tremendous operation.
Gotcha.
And they were just a single-car team, and you can't hardly do this as a single-car team.
Brad, I want to run a theory by you. Before the season, there were a lot of critics of NASCAR saying NASCAR doesn't have enough interesting storylines.
Yeah.
It's my opinion that what people are really saying is NASCAR doesn't have a lot of scandal. It doesn't have athletes getting arrested, getting in trouble, taking steroids, having contract squabbles, labor disputes. Do you think that's what people are really talking about? Because in other sports, it seems like that's what we spend a lot of our time talking about, are the scandals.
You're 100%. Well, you're 95% right.
Okay.
The other 5% that hurt us was the changeover and the transition, 5 years ago to the new car.
Yeah.
That really hurt us a little bit. But you're right. I mean, let's be realistic, man. People keep up. I mean, the other little piece to it is in stick and ball sport, which is where I come from historically. Everyone has a home team. Okay, you have your Orlando Magic.
Yeah.
You have Boston Red Sox. So you have a built-in fan base for that home team, and this thing moves around all the time. And I live here in North Carolina, but I could be Juan Pablo Montoya fan. So I'm not, but I'm only going to go to the races that are here in North Carolina.
Yeah.
So that kind of waters it down a little bit. But the big banana is just what you're talking about. There's not all the craziness and all the scandal and all. I think that, and I think a little bit of it. You hate to say it, but the cars are a lot safer today. I think people want to see people, drive a race car with the potential of maybe getting hurt. You know what I mean?
No, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say, but I think that's part of the intrigue. I think that you don't have these crazy drug-ridden or, just scandalous things going on 24/7 that draws constant attention to it. We are in a society, no doubt about it. It doesn't matter if you're getting good attention or bad attention, as long as you're getting attention.
Yeah.
It creates interest, and that's why you look at the Hollywood thing. Man, it's crazy. I'm sitting there listening to Charlie Sheen, and I'm like, my goodness, man.
That's not good for your health.
What in the world? But this guy, he's gonna end up making another $50 million off of his, just from the wackiness, and that's kind of where we are culturally, which is kind of sad. I mean, racing is a hard-nosed, blue-collar sport, and I'm of the opinion that it's probably not at the level of NBA and the NFL and Major League Baseball as a big 3 or 4 sport, but I think it's right below it. But I think the interest in our sport is a focused interest. You have to really enjoy racing to watch racing. You know what I mean? You can watch a baseball game and not be a baseball fan.
Mm-hmm.
You can watch a pro football game and not be a pro football fan. I think you got to be a race fan to enjoy racing because there's so much that goes on that when you're watching a race, it's hard sometimes on television. The cameras cover so much distance that you can't get the sensation unless you understand and have been there and leaned up against the fence and seen these guys come by at 200 miles an hour. The sights, the sounds, the smells, the colors are all ripped out of it sometimes because of television, whereas if you're watching a football game, a guy throws the ball down the field, and the guy scores a touchdown, everybody's excited. So I think there's a lot to it, but I think you're right about the premise of all the scandal stuff.
Speaking with Brad Daugherty here, 740 The Game. Go back a few weeks to the Daytona 500. They've got the new track, and there was a lot of the quote-unquote love bug racing. Were you a fan of that style that they had out there on the track that day?
No, I'm not a fan of that. My car, I own the 47 team, and Bobby Labonte drives my race car, and we actually finished 4th, had a great day for us. And but I don't like that. I think that, but I have to give NASCAR a huge pat on the back because what happened, we went down in December and did a tire test once the new surface was down, and there was so much grip in that racetrack. It's ironic. You run Daytona, and a lot of people say, well, it's super speedway. Well, the thing about Daytona, it had very, very narrow racing grooves. So it was really bumpy throughout the racetrack, so your race car had to handle. Whereas if you go to Talladega, it's all about grip, it's all about aero. You're matting her and hold her wide open all day long and trying to find a hole to duck in. Well, when we went down for the tire test, we knew we found a ton of grip. So that grip was going to mask any bad race cars or any of those types of things. So everybody had to find a way to make your car utilize and defeat drag. You're trying to get all the drag off the race car as much as possible. And the best way to do it was in 2-car pods. You did it with 3 cars, and it was like it created, it quit punching a huge hole in the air, and that third car was like a weight you put on a fishing line. But in 2 cars, it was the perfect length as the air flowed over the nose of the front car, and it would almost miss the spoiler on the second car, and you just would fly, man. So we knew we were going to have a little bit of that going back, but not what we saw. And NASCAR tried to make some adjustments throughout the week, and try to do it sufficiently by not, hopefully not killing our pocketbooks during the middle of the week. And it worked out for a little bit better race, but man, I'm not a fan of that. I want to see the guys running door-to-door, wheel-to-wheel for 5 hours at 200 miles an hour and nobody blinking. Now, I'm not driving and saying that, but I do own one of these things, and I'm more likely to be on the hook at the end of the day, but that's what I want to see as a fan.
All right, Brad, I've got a segue for you. Speaking of love bug racing, what about your other sport, basketball, and the love bug participation that's going on there with these stars teaming up in the major markets?
Yeah.
Are you a fan of that?
Well, you know what? I think that if you play any sport and you honor your contract, at the end of your contract, you should be free to do whatever you want to do. What LeBron James did, I have got no problem with that. I didn't like the decision show and all that nonsense.
You just wish he'd done it before he broke your scoring record in Cleveland.
That's exactly right. I wish he got his butt out of there before he broke all my records. But I got no problem with that. And if he wants to go play with Dwayne Wade, that's fine. And I think the reality is if in some of these markets, guys are looking at it saying this is going to be my only opportunity maybe to win a championship, or it's going to give me the best opportunity to maximize my earning potential. I can't have a problem with that. As a fan of the sport, you want to watch great games. You want to see great competition. And so when you're creating these mega teams, you have to look for the great games and great competition when they go head-to-head against other mega teams. So I think that creates a lot of excitement and interest. I don't really have a problem with it. I have problems with guys who don't honor contracts, though. I don't like that. I don't appreciate that.
Brad, but what about it's not like these major stars are congregating in Milwaukee or Cleveland or, Sacramento. I mean, what about these friends?
Shoot, if I can go to South Beach and hang out and play basketball.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, what about these other franchises? Is it going to be like baseball where they have no hope?
No, the good thing about pro basketball is their collective bargaining agreement creates opportunity for value for a player. So you're going to go. There's going to be smaller market franchises and those types of things, and those are going to be the teams that a lot of people are going to root for just because they're going to struggle because they can't get the superstars. You can't force a guy, to go somewhere and play as a star and be happy playing there. Mm-hmm. It's just not humanly possible. So it's kind of a product of its own making, just because of you having teams in L.A. They're talking about having another, pro franchise in L.A. Well, I mean that's going to suck up a lot of opportunity for a small market participation. So it makes it hard, but I don't think it's something you can fix. You can't fix it. There's no way. There's no way you can fix it.
Brad, last thing, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask. You are probably the most recognizable African-American face in NASCAR. What's it going to take for NASCAR to develop a driver who is African-American who can make an impact in the sport?
Yeah, we've tried to really push for that and try to create some opportunities. And NASCAR's done a heck of a job at trying to create a better diversity program. It's just it's going to take time. We've got, some young female drivers that are coming along. We've got Latin American drivers and Juan Pablo Montoya and several guys, Eric Almirola, but we've yet to see. And there are some kids out there. There are some young African American kids out there who are racing now today. One kid who's 8-9 years old over here. In Charlotte, kid Matt Murphy is a young African-American kid who's going to be a really good race car driver one day, without question. He races go-karts now, and I watch him a lot. So it's on the horizon, and, NASCAR, I hold their feet to the fire on it just to try to keep pushing. And Max Siegel and Brian France and all those guys they're doing the best they can. It takes a lot of money to participate in this sport, and it's almost cost prohibitive a lot of time. And in this economy, it's hard to find sponsorship to go out and sponsor a kid to give him a chance. You play basketball or baseball. If I can pick up a basketball and go shoot basketball by myself, I can't go racing by myself. I need some type of lineage, and it's just hard right now, man. And it disappoints me. It really does, because I know guys like Wendell Scott. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have an opportunity to do this, I don't think. And I think we're disappointing people like that who've worked really hard to give us an opportunity. So we'll keep trying. We'll just keep digging, and I'll do the best I can to represent and hopefully create an opportunity for someone else of color. And, man, we'll just keep digging as hard as we can dig.
Inside NASCAR airs Wednesday nights at 9 o'clock on Showtime. Brad, thanks for the time. Appreciate it, and keep up the great work.
Hey, man, I appreciate it. I enjoy listening to you guys, and thanks for having me on.